Huge match on Sunday night for both Wales and Ukraine, where the winner will be playing in the World Cup. So in this video, I'm going to preview the match and then give my thoughts on who I think will win the game. Now, there's no easy transition to this. There's just obviously the massive elephant in the room with the fact that what's happening in Ukraine. It is so horrific, and my heart goes out to everyone associated with Ukraine. I just cannot even begin to imagine what it must be like to be living in Ukraine, to have fled the country or still be there now with the war that's going on against Russia. So, like I said, my heart goes out to all Ukrainians, and I guess, their victory against Scotland is obviously nothing, and football is absolutely nothing compared to what's happening in real life. But it's just like something small in a weird way that will kind of potentially boost the Ukrainians, if you know what I mean. But obviously, like I said, there's no easy way to talk about this or transition this from football to real life. But what's happening in Ukraine is completely so much more important than what's happening on a football pitch. But if Ukraine did manage to go to the World Cup, I guess the Ukrainians might feel even prouder of their nation, and you can see what it means to the Ukrainian players in the build-up to their match against Scotland, where you had Zinchenko breaking down and crying, talking about his nation, his glorious nation, Ukraine, and the Ukrainian players will be well up for the game against Wales because they'll want to make their nation proud. But you know what? They've already made Ukrainians proud, and Ukraine as a country, admire them so much for their bravery and their effort. Not just the Ukrainian footballers, but the Ukrainian people. I mean, like I said, what they must be going through, I just cannot even begin to imagine. So, absolutely. I have so much respect for the whole of Ukraine, and I do hope that they beat Wales and get to the World Cup, because it's kind of a small boost for them in a way, considering what's happening behind the scenes and off the pitch, off a football pitch. So, talking about the game now, like I said, there's no easy transition to then talking about football, but onto the match itself. Let's start with Wales first. Now, in their last match, they played Poland away from home in the Nations League, where they lost 2-1, and it was a heavily rotated team. So you suspect that they will be playing, probably making a number of different changes for the game against Ukraine. So you can't really look at that lineup to analyse who's going to play, because, like I said, there's probably going to be a number of changes. So it's probably best to look at their last match before that, which was not the Czech Republic match, but the one before that, which was March the 20th, where Wales beat Austria 2-1 to book their place in this one-off match against Ukraine. Now, on the 24th of March, they beat Austria 2-1. Bale scored twice, scoring brilliant goals. And that team was Hennessy in goal, Ethan Ampadu, Rodon and Davis in a back three, Roberts and Nico Williams as the wing-backs, then Ramsey, Allen and Wilson in midfield behind Bale and Dan James. Now, I think it'll be a relatively similar team to that plays against Ukraine. And that's probably the best indicator as to what Wales are going to line up with. Because the last time Wales played before that game was all the way back in November, when they played Belarus and Belgium. So the Wales team haven't had a lot of a chance, really, to kind of group together and plan for this massive game on Sunday. In my opinion, I think the lineup will be very similar to one that they played against Austria. Maybe Mepham might play in defence, and then Ethan Ampadu might move midfield, just because Aaron Ramsey hasn't had a lot of game time for Rangers. So in that sense, it might be better to play Chris Mepham, who has played a lot of games for Bournemouth in the lead up to this match. Now, Wales, I think having that kind of three-back system will really suit the likes of Ben Davies and Nico Williams, especially Ben Davies, who for Spurs a lot in the second half of this season has been playing as the left-sided centre-back. So I'm sure I can see him having a pretty decent game. Harry Wilson's been in excellent form for Fulham. Dan James has been a little bit off form for Leeds, but whenever he's playing for Wales, he always steps up his game, similar to Gareth Bale in a way. But also on the bench, you've got some really significant players, key players for Wales, the likes of Livet, who actually played quite well against Poland, so he could come off the bench. Sorbra Thomas and Colwell have been excellent in the Championship, as has, of course, Brennan Johnson, who's now going to be a Premier League player. And then Kiefer Moore, who, yes, for a lot of the second half of the season, since he signed from Bournemouth, has been injured. But then when he came back, he scored against Swansea and he scored against Nottingham Forest, and he's a very good player. Kiefer Moore is just one of those players that, yes, started in his early 20s in non-league, but the older he's getting, he's just getting better and better, and it's almost like he's going to hit his prime soon. I think he's just one of those players that will play on into their mid-30s, even late 30s. He kind of reminds me of a Glenn Murray type, so he might start on the bench, but I wouldn't be surprised if he started the match, actually, or at the very least came off the bench and had a good impact. As for Ukraine, their last match they played against Scotland, where they had to win that game in order to play Wales. In my opinion, I think Ukraine played very well. In the first half, they created so many chances. Craig Gordon really kept Scotland in the game. But then when Ukraine scored just after half-time, that was a really significant goal to make it 2-0. However, you could just tell by watching the game that the more Scotland had possession, the more nervous Ukraine got, and Ukraine ended up sitting back really deeply. McGinn missed an absolute sitter, but then Scotland got one goal back, and I must say it was really poor goalkeeping from the goalkeeper, and he looked really nervous, as did the whole Ukrainian defence, to be fair. But yeah, the Ukrainian goalkeeper looked really nervous. But in the end, Ukraine managed to hold on, they got the third goal and sealed their place in this one-off match against Wales for a place in the World Cup. What I will say about this game is that I definitely think that it suits Wales being played in Cardiff, because Wales, although maybe they don't like to keep the ball as much as other teams, I do think a team like Ukraine, in the current form they're in, they're a team that like to keep the ball. I don't think they're very comfortable sitting back and soaking up pressure. So I think the fact that it's in Cardiff and Wales will probably have more possession than Ukraine, I think will actually not just suit Wales, but more damagingly affect Ukraine. I don't think it will suit Ukraine that much, and I can definitely see them getting nervous and sitting quite deep defensively, which, as we saw against Scotland yesterday, Ukraine weren't really comfortable doing that. So, for this game, I think Wales, like I said, will probably create more chances just because they're the home team and probably have more possession than Ukraine. And in my opinion, I do see Wales winning. I think they've got just too many good players going forward in Gareth Bale, Dan James, Kiefer Moore if he needs to come off the bench, Brennan Johnson as well. Sorba Thomas is excellent at set-piece delivery. So even if Wales need to chase a goal, you've got really, really key influential players for Wales who can come off the bench and have an impact. And like I said, I think the main thing going into this game is the fact that Ukraine aren't really comfortable sitting back defensively in a low block and hitting Wales on the counter-attack. Now, don't get me wrong, Ukraine have got some really good players. Yarmolenko, who is now a free agent but scored a beautiful goal against Scotland. Yarmochuk, who is the Benfica striker, he's excellent, really big guy, good in the air, good at holding up the ball. And then, of course, Zinchenko and Malinovsky, both midfield, are very, very tidy footballers. I just think that Ukraine aren't strong enough defensively to cope with the Wales pressure. So I think Wales are going to win. I can see them winning, I think 2-1. I'm going to say Wales are going to win 2-1 and they're going to book their place in the World Cup. But let me know what you think is going to happen in the comments below. Please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next video. Thank you.